Hello, this is Danny Blazer here with Excel VBA Dude. So we got a very excited special today. We're going to look into random password generator. That's right. We're going to This is session 5, and we're going to be looking at how to randomly create a alphanumeric 10-character password. This is the one that I just made for the demonstration, but it can be as many characters as you want. It could be all letters, all only numbers, what have you. So that's right. We're going to create a random password generator that anyone are able to use. And the good thing is here, it doesn't use any other than default references from your library in Excel. So guaranteed that no matter what version of Office and therefore Excel your users have, it won't make a difference. All right, so let's get started. Hey folks, Danny here. So like I said here, this is going to take a little bit of some time here to explain a couple different functions here and what they mean and how they help us achieve our goal. As you see here, I just created a sample of what the end result will look like. Really only consists of a text box here and a button right there. So when I click this button, it'll regenerate a random 10 alphanumeric character, also randomize the case, small case or sorry, lowercase or uppercase, and mix in with numbers, which in this case there happens to be none in here. So let me go ahead and hit the button and we'll see a new password generate right now. There's our 10-character password. There we go. Click it again. See, I can click this all day long. It's going to keep generating new passwords. All right. As you can see here, none of them are the same. All completely random. There we go. Let's go ahead and get started with the code. So since I've already created this, what I'm going to do is make a new sheet. Just call it pass gen just to make it short. I'm going to open up the Visual Basic Editor. Here's our new sheet. I'm going to go ahead and insert a module. I'm just going to make a sub here. Let's call it here generate new password. Alright, so a lot of things we have to do here. So let's get right down to it. We're going to need an integer. I'm sorry, something to iterate with our password. So I'm going to just do I as integer, and we also need to count. Here we need to. It's kind of hard to explain, but we'll get into it here. We're going to do is we're going to put a select case and a do loop until the password equals the character amount we specify. And we're going to also specify a string that's going to hold the aggregated password for each thing. So we're going to randomize a number, and based on the random number between 1 and 3, it's going to choose an uppercase letter, say for 1, a lowercase letter, say for 2, and a number for 3. So the random generator is actually going to random a set of events that is then going to again randomize that function that's called from the first random event. So let's go ahead and get started with it here. So I'm going to, let's see here, I'll just call it rand count. That'll be our random generator between 1 and 3 that we're going to see here soon. So it's going to be labeled as an integer data type. We're going to dim the password. That's going to show our aggregated password as we continue along. And we're going to dim something that's going to pass the values with each iteration of the loop. So I'm just going to call this add to password. I guess pretty basic enough. Add string. There we go. So looks like we got our variable set up here. First of all, I'm going to go over before the rand function is what we're going to use. Rnd. Before that works, you have to call the randomize function. So I'll do my control space to get my IntelliSense up, and there's randomize. So I do have randomize here. Let's go ahead and look at it real quick. And let's see, so here's our randomized statement from the Microsoft Docs site. So as you can see here, the randomize turns on the random function, or it's the same one that's generated the first time is going to be used every other time after that. And these are all tied together that we are using. Fortunately, they all notate it in the same place. So the seed is what the number is used in parentheses when you use randomize. I'm sorry, the rand function. So randomize activates the continuous randomizing when you use the RND function. If you don't specify a value to return from it, it defaults to using the timer. It'll say it right in here. Yeah, right here. It uses the timer function as the new seed value. If the a parameter used for it has been omitted, so you don't have to put anything in there if you wanted to. And here's a good example here. So we're going to be using this a lot, this format for the whole thing, and it's important to understand this. So a value equals int, so this is a whole integer wrapped out in parentheses. The function they're using here is 6. Now that looks like multiply, but it's not in that essence. 6 and rand, and then +1 at the end, so that way you never get a 0. So as it notates here, this is going to give you a number from 1 to 6. It could give you 0 if it round down, if it were that, but we did +1, so it will never be 0. It'll always be at least 1. And as you can guess, if we made that 20, it would be from 1 to 20. If we change this to 3 and 15, it would be 3 to 15. So with that here, let's go ahead and go back to the VB editor here. There we go. So that initiates the randomize function, and I'm going to, like I said, I don't have to put 0, but to be explicit, so to control as much as possible here, plus it saves memory once you know you're doing it. It's just good practice overall. So I is going to be 0 once it starts, as every variable, every integer, long or double, start with 0. I'm going to just make it 0. Just like I said, good practice, that's all. So let me start my do loop. There, and loop. Now I had to research this the other day to make sure I got the everything right about it, because it was pretty complicated to understand. But we're going to use the len function. So I'm going to create this whole loop, but the shell of the loop will be keep looping until password, like I said, is going to hold our aggregated password. The length of the password variable is going to equal +1 of that will equal 11. That means whatever we put in this loop is going to keep doing until the length of that password +1 equals 11, which means it'll stop at 10, which is what we want. We could change that, but I'm just making it 10 just for ease. So now we're going to get right into the hard stuff here. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the rand count variable that we made up here. I'm going to just paste it in. So the rand count is going to iterate through our 1, 2, or 3 of whatever other tiny functions of the randomize of upper, lower, or numbers. So let's see here, random equals, we want to use integer, and integer, let me just go ahead and see if I don't have that one up here. Oh yeah, integer is just a whole number. So we're going to do that there. I'm going to do double parentheses because the rand is going to be in itself. So let's say 3 asterisk rand function. So that +1, and there's that. As you guessed from the doc site we just looked at, this is the same thing. This is going to give me a random number between 1 and 3, and the integer ensures I only get whole numbers. I want whole numbers, so that's what it ensures. Okay, next line down here, I'm going to just, this is empty, an empty string when the function starts, when the subroutine starts, but again I'm just going to force it to be nothing. So here's where we could build our select case statement. So a select case statement is basically, in my opinion, it's a fancy if. Honestly, we could do a lot of this with if, but it helps structurally. It makes it look a lot better. So we do select case, and what I want to test against is the rand count right there. So it's going to loop through the whole procedure every time I run it. It's going to start the do loop, and it's going to randomize activates. It's going to randomize this, give me 1 to 3 within the do loop, which means it's going to random 1 through 3 10 times as I specified here. So that's what I want to test against. Select case. You want to test against what value, and that's the rand count. It's going to be quite big. Let me draw it out there. Put the end select. So there is one thing I have to go over before we continue, and that is you're wondering, how do we loop over the alphabet? So there's one way to loop at it. We could do a shorthand evaluate method where we use brackets. That's how we're going to find what these are. So we can't, unfortunately. Here's how I would do the first one if we didn't know how to do that. So we would want to get the integer, randomize the integer again. Now here's something, we cannot do this. Okay. This will completely fail. I'm not going to even run it, but I'm just showing you. I mean, it may have a correct syntax for it, but this this will not work at all. This will in fact fail. In fact, I'll run through it here. See, even tells me statements and labels and dot characters. So yeah, this cannot work. This cannot be evaluated in this method. So let me show you over here real quick. What I'm going to do is I'm going to stop that. I'm going to go down here. Let's give some space so I could see that. So what we have to do, we have to find out our characters from A to Z. We cannot loop through them as a string. But here we go. But we can get it using this function here, CHR. That's the character function. The character function is between 0 and 255 and includes lower, uppercase, symbols, things on your keyboard. And the alphabet is in here. Now, I could just tell you the alphabet is from character 65 to 90, okay? But let's say if we didn't know how to go about getting that, here's what we could do. So let's say here, dim x as integer. Let's see here, for x equals 1 to, I'm sorry, it's 0 base, 0 to 155. I'm going to hit next. So let's go ahead and take a look at this character function here. And here it is. So from the same site, the Microsoft Docs site, this is a great site. Here's our character code. It's a string containing the associated code of the character code. So here's some examples here. So here, see, 65 to 90, like I said. 65 is the first one, is A. So 255 there, from 0 to 255. We know our characters will be within this range here, within the 127 range, 0 to 127, and not the next set. But we're going to loop through to find it. So let's go ahead and minimize that. So I'm going to debug print, and I'm going to do Control G. So I got my window up. Let me scroll down so you can see. All right. So debug print character X. So this is going to loop through and debug print at X. But to verify what we're going to see, I'm going to VB tab. It's a constant there. And then I'm just print X, so I know what I'm looking at. So what I'm going to do is hit F8 to step through. And you see we're not getting a whole lot there because these are the symbols here and some are non-printable characters. So when I hit F5, it printed a whole lot. I'm going to go ahead and scroll up here. These are our lowercase. There's our uppercase right there. There's our alpha. There's our 65. Scroll down. There's our Zulu. There's our 90. So now we know one way to access the alphabet, since we can't loop through it in the manner specified before, the string A to Z. This is incorrect method here. We can, however, access with the character function between 65 and 90. So now that we use this to learn that, we can go ahead and apply it up here. Let me close the debug menu. Let me scroll back up here. I'm going to leave that down there. So now in here we have our one loop, I equals, let's go ahead and do this, 90. Now we minus 65, and then we'll do plus 1 to get the whole one. So what this function here is telling us, oh, I'm sorry. It's kind of weird how they write this out, how this has to work. It has to work in this fashion right here. We have to take the, so in fact the, you can think of it like this. The 90 would be the U bound, this is the L bound, and the plus 1, so we get a whole number. We know what we're going to here for anything above 0 because we are adding 65, in fact. So 90 minus 65 plus 65 is this is the same thing. Is back with our numbers. So this will work out here. I can't just do 90 minus 65, 25 plus 1, 26. I can't just do integer 26 rand plus 65. That won't work for us here. So this function will work for us. What this will guarantee is a number that I will equal any number from 65 to 90, which is what we want. So with that said, let me throw in the case. So in this instance, select case here. So case is equal, what are we testing? Rand count. We're testing this variable here, excuse me. So this, let's say this is 1. This is our 1 out of 3 that we're going to build here. Let me tab that over. So if this equals 1, if this integer here equals 1, then all this triggers. Like I said, it's just like an if statement. So what did I say? We're going to concatenate with our password. The password will be the aggregated one. We're going to use our add to password variable to carry on these, because it's going to clear out each time and empty and fill in with the new one for 10 times, for 10 loops. So add to password equals, so what we need to do here, you can't, at least there's no way I could find to randomize the class, or the case. I could further randomize a case, I suppose, to put this together, but I decided to separate it. So virtually anything's possible here, but it's what's readable between you and anyone else who might read your code. So this looks pretty, this is clear as I can get it. So in this instance, if case equals 1, randomize I, and I'm going to lowercase the character function of I, which is the random number between 65 and 90, which all correlate to uppercase of the alphabet. Now, with that said, I just said that. So I can randomize the different numbers of the character code for the lowercase to get that. Yeah, I just thought of that now. That's possible. But again, in VBA, there are so many ways to do the same thing. I'm just going to use the upper and lowercase so I can see what I'm working with here. So let me close that off with another parentheses here. Go down. Next case equals 2. So basically, this is the same exact thing. All I want though is the U case. So I'm going to just change L to U. So this add to password will only trigger one instance per loop, and then it is erased as the string. And all it does is concatenate with our password at the bottom that we'll build. So now, case is our last random variable, which if it equals 3, to perform these actions. I will paste it one more time, but in this case, what I'm going to do here is do the same format as above. I'm going to do 9 to 1 plus 1. I'm not going to include 0 in this. And I'm going to change this to 1 to ensure that's our lowest number possible. And I'm going to get rid of that. It's simply going to equal the number. So these are 3 case statements, and we'll read through it once we finish it built. I'm going to just bring that in select up. Now, before this knows what to count for password, we have to assign something to password. Otherwise, this will be a infinite loop, and you'll get stuck and have to close down your Excel. So let me just go ahead and type password equals itself, concatenate with the string, so no plus, but and ampersand, it's going to equal the add to password variable. So does it look like we have everything here? Let's see if we have everything here. We got randomized there, we got our variables. It appears we have it there. So what we're going to do here, let's read through it here. So I'm going to step F8 key, and here we go. Randomize function activated. Random the first count between 1 and 3. We get a 2. Let me go to view and bring up the locals window so you can see what everything means. Let me scroll that up a little bit for you. Random value has 2. There we go. Here we go. So is it case 1? No, random count was 2. So there are 2 triggers. I equals 0 because this will calculate it for us, and we get 68. So what is that? C? 68 is C. So we are going to get an uppercase. I'm sorry, D. C. For someone like me doing this though, and I missed by 1, that's bad, isn't it? Oh well. If you can't laugh, you die. So here's password. Watch this fill in there with uppercase D, and the loop that verifies our character count is 1, and obviously that's not 10, so it's going to keep looping down again. Oh, and we got 3. So this turns out to be 4. Add to password was cleared each time of the loop up here. And select password equals D because we're not clearing password. That's a variable we have to maintain. So it's going to equal itself, concatenate on with the new variable that's new each time, 4. So as you can see, I'm going to press F8. Our password is building. As you can see, there's a lowercase x. All right, everybody excited? We're getting there. Uh-oh, we're getting close. What is that, 7, 8? There we go. 9. As you see, this is great to save memory. If you had a long project, it's always good to clear out your variables. It's just good practice to clean up at the end. So that's why I do that there. We're getting close. And oh, look, Lin password there. There's our 10 password right there. Our 10 character alphanumeric, completely random password. All right. Congratulations, you did it. Okay. So now, how do you think, let's go the extra mile. How about we tie that into a button on the sheet? So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to minimize this so you can see the workbook we're working with here. Let me see it real quick. All right, here we go. So let's go the whole mile here. Let's go. Let me select some cells. Give it a, oh, it's a pretty blue color right there, huh? So let's there we go. Let's go ahead and get some white in there. I'm kind of recreating the first thing I did before. There we go. Hello, this is your new password. There we go. Oh, well, why don't I shrink that up? There we go. Let's add wrap text on so it squishes. There we go. So here's our new password. Why don't we go ahead and put that in a developer tab, insert. Let's do a, what did I do? A text box last time. That seems pretty logical enough. Text box. I'm going to hold down the Alt key, as I mentioned in earlier videos. That's going to size the box to the cells so we can get it nice and symmetrical. Let me go to properties. Let me bring it over here so you can see. Let's go ahead and make the font. It is a very tall box, so we're going to make a really large font. Let's close that. Close that. Close design mode. Let's see what we got. Okay, it's a nice big box. Alright, let me go ahead and remake that center. There we go. Close that. That's nice. Okay. Nice. That's some of my friends say that. Okay. So let me go design tab one, design mode one more time. Click. I'm just going to call it text box. Again, I like to label my things with the item that they are so I could reference them easier. Text box underscore, then word however I want to identify it. So password box. I'm going to copy the whole thing just so it's easy. I'm going to go back into the Visual Basic. I'm going to scroll up. I'm going to come down at the end of my code. So since I'm in a module 1 here, let's go ahead and specify the sheet we're working with here, and then we'll go from there. Alright, so it is to note that this isn't like dealing with the user form object. This is dealing with the sheet object. And ultimately that would be, I mean, ideally that would be done within the sheet code, because whenever you double click on an object on a sheet, it opens up in the sheet code. But as you can see, this is what I had the first time here. There, you weren't meant to see that, but that's what I had to use for my personal file. I made one in my personal book, and I had to connect it to this routine here to activate the example I showed you in the beginning. So let me close out of that. That never happened. So it is worth to note, like I said, we're going to use OLE objects method. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go to the top. I'm going to demo worksheet. I'm going to set the worksheet equal to worksheets. Let's see, what did I name my sheet? Pass gen. Good job, you remembered. So now that I set the worksheet, here's where I'm going to apply the property of the password. So we are going to use OLE objects. These are the best way, just in the scope of this course, it's just sheet objects. They are sheet objects, OLE objects, and I'm going to give it the name, which I copied from before. I'm going to paste it. That is the object name that you saw me name it before. Now, like in the previous videos here, we need to, the IntelliSense list breaks down here, but we're going to use the object property to access the object. So we could either use value or text. We're going to use value. So so how you could read this is the worksheets objects named this, its object, and we access all the properties in there, and the one we want to tackle here is value, equals the aggregated password that completed with the loop up here. So that's that with that one. So what I'm going to do now is go back here. I'm going to add a button here. Let's see, I'm not going to hold the Alt key now. I'm just going to make a big fat button. I'm going to right click here and edit. There we go. Get new password. Spell new password correctly. let's see here. And let's say we want to make it nice for our audience, right? We don't want our users to not be able to see, do we? I hate that it does that. All right, now we're cooking. Can I change the color while we're at it? Back color. Let's give it a nice, let's see here. Oh, this one looks cool. Nice. All right. Let me get out of that. Get out of design mode. So, oops, stay in design mode. I'm going to double click here. There's our sheet 2. There we go. So here's where we're going to call the button here. So what we could do here, we could do application, as you saw before, .run, and here's what we're going to call the macro. So our module here is module 1. So you see here when I hit dot after module 1, it'll list all the routines and functions available. As the little green flying brick, those are methods or subroutines and functions in this case. So this one was to get the character codes from 65 to 90. This is the one I want. There's no parameters to pass in. It calls up to 30 arguments, but we don't have any. So what I'm going to do now, that's already set to go. Here we go. I'm going to go out of design mode. When I hit this button, there should be a password here. And uh-oh. Why do you think that happened there? Here, because this is not, there's no text, there's no quotes around this to identify it as a string. And as you've seen, it doesn't say there, but we do have to identify this as a string. So I'm going to stop. I'm going to go back. Let's give this one more shot, and boom, boom, boom. There we go. You can see what I've generated, like 15 now. As you can see, completely random. Nice. Okay. Well, it pretty much covers it. There's a lot to go with over here. I'll put the code back up one more time. There we go. So what did we do? We initiated the randomize function of the application. We got the random for the first one in the do loop from 1 to 3. We then took that 1 to 3 in a select case statement and ran little tiny functions inside to get further randomness of the letters, uppercase and lowercase, and then random numbers. We had a password variable that held the aggregated value of the add to password for each one as it loops through, and it went up to 10. If we wanted to change this, let's say if we just wanted 5, we would do that. We set the worksheet, the OLE object. So in this instance, we'll explain more in the further episodes, but this is the sheet object called that. Then access its object properties and value, and we pass in the aggregated password. So now when I run it, we'll just have 5. And there we go. All right, so I hope you enjoyed this episode here. There's going to be a lot more to coming up, a lot more fun stuff, especially something I learned today. I'm excited to show you about some new upcoming stuff. So if you like what you saw, subscribe below, post comments, questions. We'll keep them coming. Appreciate you watching, and cheers.